So it was an epic weekend last weekend, of course, with LSU, Alabama. But this weekend, we're going to take a deep dive into the SEC on CBS with two games here. We have Florida, Mizzou, but right after that, the big one, you see it behind us, Georgia-Auburn. So welcome, Brady. Good afternoon to you. How are you doing today?
Good to be here.
Good to be here. So let's start off with Georgia. A win for them could potentially clinch the SEC East. Of course, it'll put them one step closer to the championship. College football rankings came out. Georgia was 4. A lot of talk back and forth. Is Georgia overrated or not? First of all, I guess your take on that. I mean, where do you think that they should stand?
I think it's a fair spot for where they're at right now, based on what they've done so far this year. And if they get a win versus Auburn, that would be, again, another quality win for them, which is part of that conversation. The biggest thing, though, is getting that SEC championship game and then winning the SEC. Because if they lose again, even if they were still to make it into the SEC championship game, they would not then make it into the playoff. We've never seen a 2-loss conference champion make it in, but when you look at the quality win versus Notre Dame, that's going to stand out. When you look at the win over Florida, that's going to stand out. So this would be a huge as far as making a case for them being a part of the college football playoff with some quality wins as a one-loss champion. But again, it all comes down to the SEC championship game once they get there, but they can't afford to lose this one to Auburn.
All right, so let's go into this game. Let's start with Jake Fromm. They had the loss to South Carolina. 4 turnovers in that game. Not good. Since then, he's pretty much redeemed himself. He's gone 3 straight games, no turnovers. What do you want to see from him in this game?
Well, again, mistake-free football. I mean, you can't afford to turn the football over versus some of the better teams, especially this Auburn team that, regardless of what their record is, because they played such a difficult schedule this year, it's a really good football team. And Jake Fromm has gotten it together the past 2 weeks, over 450 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. The other game versus in Lexington, it was a terrible weather game. Really wasn't asked to do much in that one. They got the win. That didn't matter. But he's really answered their call. A lot of people have questioned whether or not he is an elite quarterback at the college football level. I think this young man is. And I think you're going to see that in this matchup against a very tough Auburn defense.
He's been quoted this week as saying, I know we can be better. He says that Georgia hasn't peaked yet. Why do you think they haven't peaked?
Because they haven't been able to make the big plays downfield. I mean, this team is viewed as a team that can run the football with DeAndre Swift and the rest of the running back committee, but it's been the lack of the big plays downfield. Now, the difference has been since they've gotten back Lauren Cager, who missed a game a few weeks ago, he's made a big-time difference. I think they've gotten more involved in the game, a lot of back shoulders, a lot of in the vertical passing game, and that's been a huge confidence builder, not only just for Jake Fromm, but I think this offense, too, to showcase for their defense, we can be an integral part of this team and be able to make a difference. So look for Cager to be, when he's isolated, the matchup that Fromm likes to go to when they're not trying to pound away running the football.
All right, on the other side, we have Bo Nix, true freshman, legacy. He struggled a bit this season. He's learned, it appears, quickly from his mistakes.
He's had to.
Yeah, he's really had to. He's done well at home, which, of course, is where they're playing, completing 68% of his passes at home, going for more than 1,000 yards. But those games at home, they haven't been against teams like Georgia. What do you want to see from Bo Nix?
Well, the biggest thing is, again, taking care of the football in this matchup, but also creating some explosive plays down the field in the passing game. That's been missing a little bit. I think it's going to be hard to come by when you look at this Georgia defense. It's one of the best in college football, not just in the SEC. A ton of elite team speed on the outside, so it's going to be hard for him to do that. He's going to have to use his legs at times, too, in particular on third down, whether it's in the design quarterback run game. Gus Malzahn loves to do that with Bo Nix, but also in pass plays. If nothing's there, get out, get upfield, get what you can. Don't force the football and create a turnover because, again, that Georgia offense will run the football. They'll eat up some clock.
All right. We are going to turn it over to Gary Danielson for a second. This is really exciting. He's going to be on the call along with Brad Nessler. Gary, let's just begin with last weekend. You were on that call for LSU, Alabama on CBS. How on earth do we follow that one up?
Hi, Amanda. Yeah, that's a tough one. I've done it a long time, and I did both ends of the spectrum. I did the 9-6 game and then this last one, so it does take a couple days, I have to admit. And I think I've heard from everybody I know since that game, to tell you the truth, too, So it was a lot of fun, and we're very proud of the game. We're very proud of our team that there's a lot of pros on our whole crew. They're the crew that does the golf for CBS. There's a lot of veteran guys that have been doing this for 20, 25, 30 years. And when it got craziest, they got calmest. And so Yep, on to the next one. Just like Bill Belichick says, we're on to Auburn, Georgia.
We certainly are. I hope you have some tea for your throat. So let's start in this game with Auburn. They've had 2 losses already. A win against Georgia would basically be like a shot in the arm for them. Some big momentum moving forward. What are your expectations for the Auburn Tigers?
Well, they're literally the best defense I've seen this year. They have a championship defense. Going into Florida, going into LSU, their defense showed up. And, they're probably a veteran quarterback, nothing against anybody, but, when you have a type of team that's ready to win like this, a championship, it's sometimes tough to break in a freshman quarterback. And, for Bo Nix to have to take over this team, it's tough. It's tough on him. It's tough on the coaching staff. And, I think if they would have had a guy that maybe even just 1 year's experience, this is a team that might have split those 2 games, Florida and LSU, and still would be in the middle of it. And I'm still not sure that they're dead. If they win both of their remaining games, they will have beaten Oregon. And let's think about this. If Oregon, had won that game, they'd be 4th at the worst right now. They'd be in the playoffs. They will beat Georgia and knock them out of the playoffs, and they will knock Alabama out of the playoffs. So, 3 of the top teams in the country could be knocked off by this Auburn team, who I believe had the toughest schedule in all of college football, and it would be a remarkable season for them to have a 2-loss season. So they're not going to get the championship for the SEC, but they could be standing there at the end with resumes against, let's say, Oregon wins out and Oklahoma wins out. That's going to be an interesting discussion.
All right, so let's stay there on Auburn and talk about Bo Nix. We were talking to Brady about it. He's had a lot of criticism against him. He's going to be at home. How much do you think that home field advantage will play in for him? Can he use that in this game?
Well, he has to, yes. It will make a difference. But, I did hear Brady before I got on, and Brady's right on. I mean, this is a elite defense that he's facing. And they are getting better as the season gets on. I thought, Auburn from game 1, they were good. But as, Georgia has reached the halfway pole, you can see those young players getting better and better and better on defense. And they're really starting to emerge. They've added another true freshman corner in DJ Daniel, who's starting to play. I mean, they've got, Rush. Their nickel package is dynamic. So, it's an interesting game. I mean, usually the nickel package against Auburn doesn't mean that much because of the way they play football. They're not a drop-back passing team. Brady's right. Bo Nix has to run a little bit more, but, where I might differ with Brady is I think Gus Malzahn has to use Bo Nix on 1st and 2nd down.
All right.
When Auburn is doing well, they run their quarterback, and I think that the second running back on this team has to be Bo Nix for this game.
All right, so you talked about Bo Nix there. You talked about how good Auburn's defense is. Let's talk about Georgia's offense there, specifically DeAndre Swift, best running back probably in college football. How hard is he going to be to stop?
Well, I was ready to say that until I watched those 2 guys last Saturday, and they're pretty good too. Edwards-Helaire and Najee Harris are right with DeAndre. There's a lot of good running backs in college ball, and the thing about Swift is, and every defensive coordinator I've talked to in the SEC has said the same thing. You hold your breath when he gets the ball because you can have him defended. He's a great cutback runner. Once he gets to the second level, he is a threat to take it the whole distance. Edwards-Helaire and Najee Harris, they were 20-yard, 30-yard runs, but Swift could put on a 70-yard run at any time. And when you tried to crowd the line of scrimmage against Georgia, he pops through. He changes the scoreboard. So that's really the whole thing that is Auburn lines up. They have to know that Swift has to be accounted for and might even have to play a little conservative with your safeties to keep him from turning a 12, 15-yard run into a 50-yard run in this game.
All right, Gary Danielson, thank you so much. He's going to be on the call for the SEC on CBS alongside Brad Nessler. Gary, thank you. All right, so there is your doubleheader. Go ahead, cancel your plans Saturday. At least make sure you're near a TV. We have Florida at Mizzou. That starts at 12 Eastern on CBS. And right after that, the big showdown, Georgia Look at that. Only favored by 2.5 at Auburn. It's going to be a good day. Make sure to keep it on CBS. Well, now it's time to welcome in the director of scouting for 24/7 Sports, Barton Simmons. Barton, we just want to know. It's pretty easy. Your 3 players to know. Let's hear them.
Yeah, well, look, let's start on defense for Georgia first. And I think the Georgia defensive unit has been one of the best units in all of college football. And it really is Jordan Davis that makes it tick. When you look at the defensive line and you look at the guys that are making plays really around the football for Georgia, it's Tay Crowder, it's Monty Rice, it's these guys that are racking up tackles all over the place. And the guy with 11 tackles on the year is really the guy that makes it tick. And he takes up blockers. The way he's nimble, the way he is athletic, and yet is such a space eater and so stout in the run game, I think is critical in that odd front for the Georgia defense. And given Auburn's tendency to want to go downhill, want to address and establish that north-south run game, I think what happens on the defensive line right there with Jordan Davis is going to be critical.
All right, so that's number 1, Jordan Davis. Let's get number 2.
Yeah, well, look, I think when you're talking about Georgia offensively and what they need to do to have success is protect Jake Fromm. Jake Fromm is he's so talented, he's so good, but he is a pocket quarterback. And when you're going up against that defensive front that Auburn has with the pass rushers and Big Cat Bryant and Tadarian Moultrie and Nick Coe and Marlon Davidson on the edge, you got to have a guy in Andrew Thomas that can protect the passer. When Jake Fromm is comfortable, when he can get in a rhythm, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the country. When you get him off his spot, when you make him uncomfortable, things can get a little bit more uneven. And we saw that against South Carolina. And so I think for Georgia to have success, that offensive line has to show up, have to have one of their best performances of the year. And it starts with Andrew Thomas, who might very well be one of the top guys off the board in the spring NFL draft.
All right, Barton, what about Seth Williams, receiver? I mean, this is a fun person.
Yeah, well, on the Auburn side, I really think that because Georgia's defense is so stout, because they're one of the best defenses in the country in defending explosive run plays. They're one of the best red zone defenses in the country, the very best red zone defense in the country. Auburn's going to need to get big plays in the passing game. Auburn's going to need to score from outside of the red zone, take some shots, and that comes with Seth Williams. He is that guy, the big body perimeter receiver, the downfield threat. I don't know how much they're going to be able to drive the field consistently against this Georgia defense. They're going to need some explosive plays. And down the field, Seth Williams has been really the only guy that consistently has provided that for Auburn. So Bo Nix, can he get the ball to Seth Williams? If he can, I think that there's an opportunity to make some big plays.
All right, Barton, there you go. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you so much. You guys want to make sure to download and subscribe to the Cover 3 podcast. With Barton there, Chip Patterson. It is a fun listen. Download and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. All right, let's bring back in Brady Quinn. You got a lot of props there. Congrats.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. No, and look, and Gary's right, by the way. When he's talking about Bo Nix and he's talking about him running maybe first, second down, also passing on first and second down, that actually might be his best opportunity to pass versus this very, very tough Georgia defense. I mean, they only allow about 10 points a game. So it's sometimes hard to come by those completions when the defense knows you're going to throw the football. So every once in a while, you need to sneak in a pass on first and second down.
All right, so we've talked a lot about the quarterbacks, but probably the best matchup in this game is going to be Georgia's O-line versus Auburn's D-line. Georgia's O-line has only given up 5 sacks all season. However, are they going to be healthy?
It's a big question, and it's hard to tell this early in the week whether or not they will be for the matchup. But again, you mentioned the 5 sacks. That's second in the country at only Air Force, all right? Air Force runs a triple option. That's more of a rushing team. So it just tells you how good they've been, but also how good Jake Fromm's been. Getting rid of the football, going to the right spot with the football, not holding on to it too long. And that's going to be key. Because if you look at this Auburn defensive front, they can give you all sorts of issues, and it all starts with their defensive tackle, Derek Brown. This front averages 3 sacks per game. They're only giving up about 112 yards as far as on rushing plays per game this year. So this is a very formidable opponent. I think it's a very even matchup both ways between these two teams. That's why when you talk about Jake Fromm, you heard Barton Simmons talk about the fact that he's more of your prototypical pocket passer. But he is athletic enough to take off at times, and he's going to have to in this game, or at a very minimum, move within the pocket, move outside of the pocket to make some of those throws downfield if they want to find some production. So I can't wait to watch those big guys up front, because you're talking about a lot of Sunday talent playing on Saturdays in this matchup between the Georgia O-line and the Auburn defensive line.
So for these doubleheaders, do you just sit at home, you and the TV? Do you try to keep it quiet?
No, I'm working. I'm working. So I've actually got another job in the employer.
That's right.
I've got all the
I'm just thinking he has a regular life like I do, but you have many more responsibilities there.
When we go on the road and play in the SEC, it's loud. Auburn's one of those places that brings the environment that you expect in the SEC.
We're so locked in right now. It's a very, very important game. We're playing, one of the more talented teams in the entire country, maybe the most talented.
Gus has done a great job playing with a freshman quarterback who I think is going to be a really talented player in this league for a long time.
Nix, he throws to Williams. He's got it! Touchdown, Auburn!
Real impressed with the run defense. I don't think they've given up a rushing touchdown the whole season, which that hadn't happened in the last 20 years in college football.
They hand it off to Downing. Monty Rice has got Downing by the waist. He won't let him go.
It's made up of a group of guys that buy into doing it the right way and play team defense. Their defense speaks for itself. They've got a ton of guys that are going to be drafted on it. They got guys that seem like they have played in our conference for 10 years.
Well, that should get you fired up. If not, we're about to talk to Tim Doyle here in a second. Let's take a look at this matchup here. Georgia-Auburn. Georgia, 2.5 as of right now. We're going to see what happens. The over-under 40.5 there. So, for more on his picks, he's on a hot streak right now. Tim Doyle sizzling hot. He is 3-0. First of all, congratulations, Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you very much. Yeah, like I said, if I walked into church right now, Amanda, and dipped my hand in that holy water, it would be blazing hot if I walked into some of those cathedrals there in South Bend, Indiana.
Good thing you don't go to church, Doyle.
Okay, let's go.
All right, Tim, let's see if you can stay hot this week or if you're going to cool off a little bit. What is your pick for this game?
Everybody, and I mean everybody, expects Auburn, Georgia, to be a low-scoring game. I haven't heard one single person say they expect 5 touchdowns and 2 field goals. Well, if that happened, that would send the game over. So I'm telling you this right now. If it was this easy to gamble, we would all just quit our jobs. Amanda wouldn't have a job, Brady wouldn't have a job, and sure as heck, I would not be working. I would be gambling all the time, every single hour of my day. This is too easy, the under. So you bet over here. I know the numbers. Georgia's only giving up 10 points a game. Auburn's only giving up 17 points a game. Auburn's offensive line, Georgia's defensive line. I get all of that. But the game is not that easy. The game of gambling is not that easy. So I'm going to go over here. And I know they changed the host out on me. Tommy Tran, him and I had this chemistry, 3 straight wins. So they throw Amanda out there. Amanda, I'm not going to let you jinx me here. I'm going to go over with the total.
I actually like this bet, by the way, and the reason being is because that over-under set so low. When you look at college football right now and you look at offenses, look, as good as Georgia's defense has been, I mentioned it earlier, about 10 points per game they're giving up. I still think this is a tough challenge to go up against a quarterback like Bo Nix who can run the football, along with the rushing attack and some of the ability on the outside by some of the wide receivers for Auburn, even though this Georgia defense can match that with team speed. So I think this is a low-scoring game, but when I'm saying low-scoring, I'm saying somewhere along the lines of 24-21, and if that's the case, then again you're hitting the over. So low-scoring game, but this is just incredibly low for the standards of the SEC and these two teams. So I'm with you, Doyle. I actually like the over on this one.
All right, so they both have the over there. Tim Doyle already doing his dance. He's hot. He's 3. Who are you taking in the game?
All right, the game is difficult. Come here. So a lot of people used to have like the 8 ball and like rub it. My son, Chicago Joe. Take my mic off here. Joe, how old are you?
5.
Okay, he's 5 years old. Maybe he's got a little cold here. But Auburn's 2.5-point dogs over Georgia. Joe, we love Bo Nix, right? Who do you like in this game, Auburn or Georgia?
Auburn.
Yeah, I like Auburn too. Home dogs, and I think Bo Nix coming off a game where he went 30 of 44. Joe and I were locked in, 340 yards versus Ole Miss. I think Georgia has this big old bullseye, Joe, and there's a lot of pressure on them to make it to the national, the playoff. That was the expectation this year. I think they get tripped up in this game. So not only do I like Auburn money line. How do you feel about that?
Good.
Me too. So I think that's pretty simple. If you don't know what to do, Brady, roll with Chicago Joe.
That is so true, and that's why I hate the fact that I've got to disagree with my guy, Chicago Joe. Georgia's got everything to play for. Jake Fromm is kind of on a warpath right now to prove to everyone that he is elite. So unfortunately, I've got Georgia winning this one. I'd lay the points. I do think it's going to be a very, very close game. As I mentioned before, 24-21. But Georgia representing the 24 in that case. But I hate to go against Chicago Joe.
I don't know how you go against Chicago Joe. I mean,
Especially when you know what's on the line, because if they get that pick right, if he gets Auburn right, that means Chicago Joe gets a new pair of shoes. That's usually what's on the line there for Tim Doyle and Chicago Joe.
All right, Joe. Well, we're going to hope that you get a pair of shoes. Thank you to Tim and Joe. Hope you guys have a good one and you stay on this winning streak.
We're hot.
They're very hot and very nice.
Yes.